Hello and welcome everyone to a special edition of Chat with Chaps for That Millwall podcast. Today, I'm joined by three co-hosts where we're going to be doing a bit of a Millwall roundtable on all things that happened in the 23-24 season and looking forward into the next season. Something we've never done before, but we thought we'd give it a go. And we've got three fantastic guests that will be talking to us today. So I'm going to introduce all of them now, and then we'll talk a bit about what we're going to go deeper into throughout the course of the next hour or so. So first of all, big welcome to Angelo. Welcome, Angelo.
Hi, Chris. Yeah, thank you for inviting me on the show, mate. Pretty excited about doing this. I love obviously watching your Chat with Chaps. It's brilliant, mate. It's the one that I look forward to the most. So yeah, I'm happy to be here and to give my two penneth, mate. Yeah,
lovely, mate. And I am just back at you there. Really enjoy your analysis that sometimes I know you put onto to Nick's channel. So absolute pleasure to have you on. So thank you for joining us. And for those listening, I haven't paid him any money to say what he just said about me. So thank you, Angelo. The next guest probably needs no introduction to a lot of the Twitter fan base that I'm sure have read a lot of Dan's very balanced and very, very well thought out and articulated articles. But welcome in, Mr. Dan Marsh. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks, mate. Yeah, thank you. 5 is in the post for that. Be good to looking forward to it. Looking forward to chatting and digesting the season a bit now that now that the panic's sort of over and we're all safe. So yeah, should be good.
Lovely stuff, Dan. Great to have you on. Thank you. And last but no means least, an avid listener of the show. Always very well balanced thoughts on Twitter and absolutely buzzing to have you. Steve, welcome to the show, mate.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Good to be on this. It was interesting when you put the invite out to come onto the show. I think my response to you was it's likely to be a post-mortem of what looked like being a really disastrous season for us. But thank God it ended as it did, and we're in a much, much better place now. But yeah, delighted to be on the show. Just very quickly, I'm actually an exiled fan. I live up in the north, up in sunny Bolton, although it's bloody pissing down here today, as usual. Not just on a bank holiday, but as usual. But no, look, really, really looking forward to being part of this today and get everybody's thoughts, etc. So thanks for the invite.
No, thank you. And thanks all of you just in advance for this. It's really nice to have listeners of the show come on and provide their views as well. And you're not just sort of confined to the comment section. So really delighted to have you on. And just to go through a bit of a run through what we're going to talk about today. So we're going to cover three main talking points. So the first one is just a bit of a summary and a review and our personal takes on the season as a whole. So we're going to dig a little bit deeper into that. The second point is essentially, what do we need to improve on the field, specifically on the field, to get us to ultimately where we want to be next season, which is in the top 6. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. And then the third and final point is to cover some of the off the field incidents that have obviously occurred in recent weeks. Probably needs no introduction, but the likes of Steve Kavanagh, Alex Aldridge and Billy Taylor leaving the club in the last few weeks has probably been a bit of a shock to us all. So we will certainly cover that as well. So they're the kind of three talking points. But let's kick off with the first one. So I think, on the field, it's probably fair to say it didn't go as we'd hoped this season. I like to think about it as it was almost like it could have been a film or a book. You start off the end of last season in the playoffs, 45 minutes left. We didn't get in. Then the very sad and unfortunate passing of our chairman that rocked the club. We then go on to have 3 managers with different styles, different approaches throughout the course of the season. You've then got that, classic story of, the adversity of all the things that had happened off the field. And then the fact that we were so close to the relegation zone throughout. And then you kind of got the finale, which is the saviour, the Neil Harris returning to the club to keep us up. So actually, you could probably write a book or a film on that. But, Steve, tell us a little bit about your view on the season as a whole.
Yeah, cheers, Chris. Interesting. At the beginning of the season, I had mixed emotions. I think we all knew it was going to be a much harder league this year, or the year that's just gone, than the year before. So you thought it's going to be a really tough league where we had our chance of getting in the playoffs. This is going to be a real tough league. But I had optimism after the previous year that, you know, with Rowett's style and approach, and we could probably repeat the same, and a couple of decent signings. It felt good. But then on the balance of that, I always had in my mind as well, if it don't click for us, we could end up being down the bottom end because of second season syndrome in a way, but also, as I say, because it was going to be such a tough league. One thing I do remember, you probably all remember really clearly, remember transfer deadline day? And right at the 11th hour, we were in negotiations with Kiefer Moore to bring him in. And it certainly seemed genuine. All the top news channels were running the story. And I've got to say, in hindsight, I think that could have been an absolute game changer for us, getting a player of his calibre in and the style of player that he is. And it looked like it was a genuine opportunity. And then, typical Millwall, we got kicked in the balls at the last minute and it didn't happen. And I think I'm right in saying Bournemouth didn't get a striker that they wanted, and that meant that we couldn't then get more. So, look, that probably was the start of the bad news. The chairman was a massive blow to the club, wasn't it? You know, losing JB. And I have to say, I'm as guilty as anyone. Probably didn't realise how good he was until he'd actually gone. And then the outpouring from the media and the football family was an absolute fitting tribute to him in terms of how he was regarded in the game. And I think that really did knock us for six, didn't it? And I think where I'd finished there, because I've gone on a bit already, we didn't use that to our advantage, as I think a lot of people thought we would. Certainly I did, and my mates all thought we could really get this to galvanise the team and let us have a really good start to the season. And it actually was the worst thing that happened, wasn't it? You know, it was a disaster. Just quickly, the Bristol City, the tribute game was an absolute disgrace, wasn't it? You know, it was a terrible tribute to JB. So, not a lot of info there, but that was my view. And then exactly as you've just said, you really painted it brilliantly there in terms of a movie is definitely a good way analogy of the season with the hero at the end bringing us over the line and into safety, which was great.
No,
so hopefully it's a little bit of a taster.
Hopefully, mate. And you touch on something there that, let's be honest, for all of his, pros and cons, Mr. Harris certainly galvanised the club in terms of the fan base and the players. And, to your point, we never really got that kind of passion that you would hope that something like JB passing would invoke in the players. We never really got that. And I think a lot of that is down to just the lack of connection at the starting point of the season between the fans and the on the field side. But Angelo, what's your take on the overall season? And actual fact, I'm going to go around as well. I'll come back to you in a minute, Steve. But Angelo as well, give me a score out of 10 in terms of how you would rate the progress, of the season as well.
It's hard to score the season because the season was like in three stages, really, wasn't it, mate? It came in like three chunks. But, just going back to JB, I can remember it like it was yesterday. I was on the settee, my son's rung me. He went, JB's died. I went, shut up. It makes my skin crawl now just thinking about that phone call. It was horrible, mate. And deep down, I knew it was going to be a problem for the club because the guy was so well loved and respected by, the staff, the players, the management, the fans. Everybody loved this guy. So, that was obviously the worst thing that could have happened to start the season. when the pre-season started, I don't do friendlies, mate. I can't get into friendlies. I just do not go to any friendlies. Just don't do it. But obviously, I keep an eye on all of them, yeah. And I was getting a little bit excited. Nisbet was scoring a few goals. I was hearing great things about Imaku. That they were really on fire in the pre-season. And then I was away for the Middlesbrough game, and like, I'm on my phone constantly. And then I seen that SA scored the winner. I thought, my God, this is it. This is the season. SA is going to come rocking in, and it, you know, Imaku's done the assist, and it gets you really excited. 1-0 win away at Middlesbrough, fantastic start, you know. Then you start dreaming, didn't you? Like all Millwall fans. And then I went to the Reading game, the Reading in the Cup, where that sort of like brought us back down to earth, you know. It was just atrocious, mate. You know, I think once the second and third goal went in, like my son's going, come on, let's go. I said, I'm one of these guys, I never leave early, mate. Never ever leave early. But it was atrocious. And like we saw the signs of Bart, you know, like there was that situation where Bart's come running out for a ball, and it was almost like he was in slow motion. I'm thinking, oh my God, Bart is finished, you know. Do you know what? A quick thing on Bart though, mate. I don't know if you guys will agree with me, but I am 1,000,000% convinced if Rowett hadn't swapped Bart for Long, we would have made the playoffs. You know, we would have made the playoffs. In my opinion, I think that was the biggest balls up that Rowett could ever do, because the amount of them goals that Long let in. Anyway, I don't want to go back to last season. That's gone. But
I think you're right though. By the way,
yeah. Yeah, I'm convinced, mate. If Bart stays in goal, we make the playoffs, mate. Yeah. So you know, obviously, good reports in pre-season, great start at Middlesbrough, and then it started to go to shit pretty early, didn't it? You know, we lost to Reading, we lost to Bristol City. There was that nightmare game at Norwich where the fans just turned on Rowett.
Yeah.
And then the few games after that, you know, I'm going to the matches and I'm hating it. I'm not enjoying it. It's boring. I'm thinking, you know, I even said to my son at one stage, I don't think I can carry on watching this shit. I just don't think I can, you know. So in the end, I was always one that backed Rowett, but the start was so bad that I can understand, you know, all the fans calling for his head. And then obviously when he went, then there was the excitement, who are we going to get? And then all of a sudden this name comes out of the blue, Joe Edwards, like who the hell is Joe Edwards? So, you know, we're online, we're all looking to see, you know, what he's all about. Saw a couple of interviews that he'd done with when he was at Everton, he come across pretty well. And you know, I'm one of these fans that will give everybody a try, you know. So yeah, let's get behind him. And I was a little bit excited, you know, like all of us were. Sadly, it didn't work out for him, which I'm gutted about, to be honest with you, because you know, there's one quick thing, Chris, about Joe Edwards. In my opinion, the guy was really, really unlucky, mate. The reason I'm saying he was unlucky, it took him about 4 or 5 games to try and get his message across to the players, yeah. And then there was that game in the cup with Leicester, where we played really, really well, mate. Yeah, and we should have beaten them. There's no question about it. We should have beaten them. Yeah, and then the game against Middlesbrough. Yeah, we all spoke about it, didn't we? That half hour of football. I remember it like it was yesterday. I turned around to my son. I said, "Mate, we're playing like the old Barcelona team." You know, I've never seen Millwall play football like this. We go 1-0 up, and then there's that crucial sliding doors moment where Jake Cooper has the chance to put us 2-0 up, and from 2 yards, he somehow clips the top of the bar, and then it just turns to rat shit, and we lose the game 3-1, yeah? But that half hour was just unbelievable football, in my opinion. And where I think he got unlucky was that Lenny then gets injured in that Leicester game, yeah? And then all of a sudden, we go into a little bit of a run. So we play Middlesbrough. We give away that stupid penalty in the last minute, so it costs us the 3 points. Yeah, we get a tough point up at Stoke, and then we go on that nice little run where we win 2-0 at home to QPR. That brilliant game against Norwich, my favourite game last season at the Den. The atmosphere that night was unbelievable, with the help of Ashley Barnes. And then obviously then we had the Bristol City where Hutch was just outstanding in that game.
Yeah.
Forget that he scored that last minute winner. He was just head and shoulders above everybody. And this is a guy just coming back from injury. And then obviously he scores that goal, and we're thinking, wow, do you know what I mean? It's starting to move in the right direction. Then Hutch gets injured. We haven't got Lenny. And then it just, from there, it just started. We started to lose games. The confidence went. And then we've got Tanganga coming. We've got Obafemi coming. But where Joe Edwards was very, very unlucky, these guys were nowhere near fit. Yeah. And so he's lost Lenny. He's lost Hutch. He's got 2 unfit players who's coming to try and save us. And literally, I think he just run out of time, mate. The confidence dropped. And in the end of the day, it was the right decision, sadly. And I feel sorry for him. And that's where I think he was unlucky, mate. He was unlucky with Lenny, unlucky with Hutch, unlucky that the 2 star players we brought in were unfit. And then obviously the confidence went. We started losing games. And then all of a sudden, after that Sheffield Wednesday game, I actually believe we were going down, mate. I'm thinking we're going down. It was that bad. So yeah, and then obviously in comes the saviour to save the day. He's come on board again. Not everybody was on his side, but what a job that guy's done, mate! It's just phenomenal. Some people saying, "Oh, you can't go back," but this is a different Neil Harris to what we had last time, mate. The way that he got the players fighting and the defence, only to concede 2 goals at home and none from open play. It's unbelievable, mate, what he done, just tremendous. And I take my hat off to Mr. Neil Harris and I thank him for coming and saving us. So yeah, dodgy season, mate, but in the end, it worked out all right for us. And I'm really looking forward to next season. I really am, So yeah, a season like no other, I'd have to say, We had 4 managers, really, didn't we, mate? Because we had Barrett in there for like 3 or 4 games. And he didn't win anything.
No. Although we were unlucky when we were
So yeah, interesting season, and we survived it. Yeah, we was, mate. We was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, thanks, Angela. I think it's you can really divide the season, can't you? I think my signal's going a bit iffy. Sorry, gents. I think you can really divide the season into 3, and we're going to talk a bit about the records of the various managers in a moment. But before we do that, Dan, give us your 2 cents on the season as a whole.
Yeah, it was a difficult one. I think obviously lots been said about JB, and I won't dwell too much on it. But I think, not to speak for anyone else, but I think I sort of expected us to come into the season with a bit of a hangover from the kind of manner of the Blackburn game and being so close to playoffs. And I think I even said in another podcast at the start of the season that I thought that had an impact on our start, and maybe it did, but I think the bigger impact obviously was JB passing away. And like I said, I won't speak for other people. I think for me, I definitely underestimated how much of an impact that has maybe had on the season. Gary did a very, very solid job for us, for a long time. I think, when he went, probably with hindsight, considering everything gone on, probably the right decision. I think, again, I've said before, I think the Blackburn game felt like a bit of a natural conclusion to that cycle for me. But for obvious reasons, that didn't happen. And then I think, like a lot of people, I was quite excited by the appointment of Joe Edwards, a new direction, sort of thing. And, you see loads of clubs are kind of doing it. Some have fared better than others. Obviously Kieran McKenna will be the standout for people with Ipswich, but obviously you look at in our division, Ian Foster at Plymouth, similar background to Joe, and they ended up cutting it a little bit finer than us. But Angelo's absolutely spot on. I think after that Sheffield Wednesday game, I think we were only going one way. I don't think it was changing, and he wasn't in the job for a long time. But in terms of games managed, he had a decent chunk of the season, and I think something needed to happen. And I know you said we'll we'll touch on all three parts of the season, so I won't go in too deeply. But when it was kind of announced that Harris was coming back, I fancied if anyone was going to get it out of us, it would be him. But I've got to say, like I fancied him to do quite well, but he's exceeded, I would say, the expectations of everyone. He's done a phenomenal job, and I think he's more than earned his crack at next season.
I completely agree, Dan. I think just to touch on the point, and then I'll take us into reviewing the managers. Really agree with both yourself and Angelo that Joe Edwards was unlucky, and it was quite an exciting change. I think we all wanted something a little bit different, particularly after 4 or 5 years of a very effective but pragmatic Gary Rowett. So I think we were all very excited and buoyed by that, but a combination of a lot of fixtures in a short space of time, injuries that Angelo touched on, the players that he brought into the club not being ready to save us yet. And I think ultimately that was it. Let's take a look at his record, actually. So I'm going to flick something up now. And for those of you that are listening, I should say, on the podcast, what we have in front of us is the managerial records of the 3 managers. I've left Adam Barrett out for the purposes of this, but you've kind of got Gary Rowett, Joe Edwards and Neil Harris. So Gary Rowett and Neil Harris, 13 games apiece, and Joe Edwards, 18 games. So I think a couple of key stats that I'm going to sort of read out, and then we'll go to the fellas for their points of view. So first of all, points per game. Neil Harris, 2 points per game. I mean, that's top 2 form, let alone playoffs. That's just outstanding if you extrapolate that over the course of the season. Joe Edwards, 0.9 points per game, which, again, over the course of this season would have seen us get relegated, given that I think Birmingham went down with 50 points, I believe. Gary Rowett, 1.2 points per game, which would have just about, I think, kept us safe. But again, just shows you not where we wanted to be. A couple other points to bring out. So, goals scored. Not many goals scored at all, really. And we'll certainly talk a bit more about that. So 13 goals for Gary Rowett, 15 for Joe Edwards, and 14 for Neil Harris. But the big difference is in goals conceded. So only 9 goals conceded in 13 games for Neil Harris. So really, that's one of definitely the things that he did when he came in. He really sort of solidified that back line. Joe Edwards, 28 goals conceded in 18 games. So you can see there one of the big deltas. Then we have average possession, average XG, total shots on target, big chances created, corners, passes, pass accuracy. And the real telling sign here, Dan, I'll come to you first, but the real telling sign on this one is that actually Neil Harris scores the lowest in all of those different indicators. But of course, the one that matters is the points. So, what's your take, Dan, on how Neil Harris has been able to amass those points, but with all of the other indicators, possession, shots, big chances, etc., he's actually lower than both Gary and Joe. What's your take on that, mate?
I think not to sort of coin his Millwallness phrase that has sort of been doing around since he come back, but it's just he's kind of gone back to basics, really, hasn't he? I think maybe a few players were maybe didn't look as comfortable when we tried to open things up a bit more, be a bit expansive, and I think Chopper just went back to what he's known from his time at the club. Tough to beat, compact. I say a threat going forward, but obviously he had limited options to work with, really, because let's not forget this was a squad that not only has he inherited someone else's squad, but this is a squad predominantly built, to play with wing backs, to play with a back 5, a back 3, however you want to coin it. But don't forget as well, the players, the nucleus of this squad are players he knows really well because he signed them, or he, in the case of Billy Mitchell, Billy Mitchell gave his debut to, and he'll have been aware of those at the club. And I think we needed sort of a safety first approach at that point. We needed someone who was going to come and grind out points, definitely substance over style at that point of the season. and it was just a fit. It just worked well. I think you know, it was a very similar story in his first reign. You know, I don't think we've ever really playing kind of free-flowing Barcelona football, but we played effective football. We played good football at times, though. And I would argue we've played good football at times since he's come back. I know that is another thing that sort of divides opinion. I imagine we'll get onto that a bit later, but I've been pleasantly surprised with how we played since he's come back. But I just think he understood the assignment without being a bit too cheesy, and it was just a good fit. You know, if I think I said around the time he was appointed back in February, I think it was, our home form would obviously, was in the gutter, and we've predominantly built our playoff pushes on strong home form. Now I'm 32. If there was, so obviously my pool of Millwall managers is limited, but if I was going to pick a Millwall manager to win any one-off game at the Den, it would be Neil Harris. Without sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but like he just knows what it takes to get a Millwall team playing and winning at home. And I think what sort of similar with Gary, I think his previous reign, I think he was in charge for 4, maybe in 5 years. I'd have to double check, but it's just natural cycles in football. I think it become a bit stale and maybe similar towards the end of Gary's reign. But it's obviously working a treat at the minute, and it's exactly what we needed. So fair play to the board for holding their hands up and going and getting what we needed to get out of the situation. What comes next is obviously a different matter, but yeah, I won't run too far ahead.
No, I think one thing I would love to talk about, and we can talk about this in the second agenda point, which is just, does Harris evolve his style even more based on the recruitment that we bring in the summer? And we'll talk a bit about in terms of what we think we need in order to get there. But Angelo, what's your view? I know you've got a specific view as well on. You pulled your own stats on the win rates, mate. So talk to us a little bit about that and what your view is on the 3 different managers.
Yeah, so obviously I looked at some of the stats. Gary Rowett, he had a 36% win rate. Joe Edwards had 22%, and then the Saviours come in with 61%. Yeah, which is fantastic. Yeah. So the thing that really blows my mind is that Neil Harris was sacked from Gillingham apparently because all their games were 1-0 wins. Right. Now, if Neil Harris can give us 28 1-0 wins next season, I'll sign up for it right now. Because I found that when I was watching the Gary Rowett football, I was genuinely getting bored. I didn't want to go to the stadium. I didn't look forward to going. But with Neil Harris, although we were winning 1-0, it was enjoyable. The atmosphere was there. There was more bite from the players. There was tackles flying in. There was that siege mentality. The defence was rock solid. Lenny was playing out of his skin. They were exciting 1-0 wins, in my opinion. So, yeah, I'll take 1-0 wins. I'll take 25, 26, 27 of them next season and all day long, mate. So, in my opinion, I think that what Neil Harris has done is literally outstanding in that I think that I'm actually looking at him now that he is an above average Championship manager now, mate. The way that he gets these players fighting and scrapping and understanding the Den to turn that home record around. I don't know how he done it, mate. I don't know how he done it, but whatever he's done is worked. And honestly, I'm so looking forward to seeing him in charge with a few more additions in the summer. That Neil Harris still, being with us. I hope he never leaves, mate. If he gets to that stage where the fire's gone out of his belly, like he did at Luton, move him upstairs, mate. Keep the guy in the club forever, mate. And let's get that statue out of there as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Steve, I think you wanted to say something about it also, wasn't it, Steve?
Yeah. Shall I crack on with the same question, Chris? Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with a lot of what both of you have said that. I mean, I'm divide opinion. Rowett, he did a decent job for us overall, without a doubt. The results tell you that, the positions in the table, etc. But like you say, Angelo, Jesus Christ, watching us at times was so dull and boring and awful watch. And then, of course, when you're not picking up a 1-0 win or a cheeky draw away or whatever, it starts to really grind. And I think he just lost interest in the end, hadn't he, Rowett? He'd lost his mojo and he wanted out, as Kane in the end, definitely. Joe was an interesting... I remember I was down for the Southampton game, the home game. Fucking last-minute loss, wasn't it, to dear Russell Martin's team. But the rumour was there that Edwards had got the job. Now, I'll stitch myself now and say at that time, my view was we possibly could have gone for the Christ, what's his name now? He's gone to Charlton.
Nathan Jones.
Nathan Jones. Bit of a controversial one, and I knew it would be, but I thought he would be more of an instant hit in terms of getting results quickly. I saw Edwards as a longer term project, and that's what proved to be. And look, it didn't work out, as we rightly say. I agree with you, Angelo. He's a bit unlucky, and a lot of what he did was really good. But I think a fair bit was self-inflicted as well, which we'll probably cover off later. In terms of his reign, I felt he didn't deliver on what we thought he would deliver. But I agree with you, that Middlesbrough game at home was unbelievable. I watched it on the live stream, and I was talking to my mates that night, and we lost the game. I think it was 3-1, wasn't it, on the day?
Yeah.
I said to my mates after going 1-up, I said, if that's the shape of the future, I'm really confident we're going to do something, because we played some great stuff, as you said, Angela. But then it never kicked on from there, did it? It spiraled downwards. Bomber then comes in, and interesting, did he play the style of football that he played, and the stats that you've shown there, Chris, have borne out due to the need to just get results? Or is that his style of play? I think it's a bit of both. You know, look, he's not a Joe Edwards. I don't think he ever will be. But I don't think he's a long ball merchant totally. I think he's passionate, effective, dynamic, attacking football. Harris, for me, is what he wants. And with the right players, I think we can get more of that. And I think Dan said it there. There were games that were enjoyable to watch. It was football under Harris. I remember the Southampton away game. Again, I was on a stream, not there. But we broke away at one point, and there was 4 players breaking their backside to get into the box, to get the ball, the ball. Now, that we hadn't seen in weeks, if not months. So he's definitely got something. And I do think he's a better manager now. And 100% deserves the opportunity to have a go through the transfer window and next season. He's going to be under pressure, because we lose a couple of games early doors. You're going to get all the moaning brigade coming out. We told you so. It was a flash in the pan, etc., etc. But I've already said it previously. He has got balls the size of coconuts, hasn't he, to take on the job in the first place. I mean, who actually made the decision to go and approach him, I wonder? Was it James? Was it Kavanagh? And what's it? I don't know, but what a great decision. I remember hearing it. I was at a meeting in Sheffield, and somebody said, oh, you've got Harris coming back. And I'm like, you're joking. That just didn't seem right. It seemed a step backwards. And I was really nervous, but the guy has just blown me away with what he's done. And I'm with you, Angelo. Let's get that statue up there. And let's never let him leave the club again. He needs to get a job upstairs in the future, because he gets the club. He gets us. And if we do want to change tact and what have you, you can do it gradually and in manageable steps. But keep the kick, bollock and bite, as people say. that Millwallness. God forbid we're saying that word, but it's true. So yeah, really interesting. Three very different characters and styles, wasn't it, throughout the season?
It was, Steve, and I think. By the way, I agree with everything that everyone said. I think if I try and pinpoint the things that Harris specifically did to try and change our fortunes, I can try and pinpoint three things specifically. So the first one is So we talked about this. He went back to basics, but the first thing he did was just try to play as many as he can. Sort of, no sort of square pegs, round holes type thing. And I'm going to kind of contradict that by saying he put Danny Mack at left back. But by putting Danny Mack at left back and Ryan Leonard at right back, he put his best two one-on-one defenders in positions where we can nullify a threat, which is quite an obvious thing to say, but we weren't doing that before. So that's the first thing. I think what he got out of Danny Mack and Ryan Leonard in particular, in my opinion, best right back in the league. I'll stand by that based on what I've seen in the second half of the season. That's outstanding. So that's the first thing. The second thing he did was he didn't use a lot of our so-called flair players. So, Romain Esse didn't feature much. Brooke Norton-Cuffy didn't feature much. Imaku didn't feature much. Denor, who's probably, technically one of our better players, he actually didn't use those players. He just sort of, that kind of, again, we all use it, that Millwallness, those sort of players that he knows are going to sit in a structure, they're going to carry out his actions, everything he wants them to, they're going to do. That was the second thing. And then I think the third thing, and Steve, you touched on a moment in the Southampton game that you saw a change in the players' mentality. But for me, the one standout moment for the season was against Birmingham, where Ryan Leonard headed the ball and then he chased his own knock-on 35 yards, 90th minute, sprinted to get fouled, win a free kick that saw the game out, and he thumped the floor in jubilation. And to me, that epitomised that fight that Neil Harris has brought to the club. And I think what we now need to do is take all of that good stuff that we just talked about, and then with our summer recruitment, add a little bit more quality on top so that we can gradually evolve. And I think that's where we need to get to. And what we're going to do now is we're going to pivot to...
Chris, sorry, before you do, can I just add a fourth to that what points you're saying? Yeah. I think really crucial with Harris, man management. Sorry, in this modern world for the ladies watching, people management. But he is a quality, you can tell he is a quality man manager, puts his arm around a player or kicks him up the backside and says, hey, come on, I want to get the best out of you and I want you to go out and run through a brick wall for me. I saw a podcast a couple of years ago now. Remember Ben Marshall played for us? Great little player on loan. And remember when we nearly signed him permanently and he went to Norwich? And he was talking about that. He went to Norwich to play for Varka and he fell out with him, didn't like him. He was a weird, he talks weird. He is a weirdo as well. But he said, Neil Harris, he said, I absolutely loved the guy. He's an absolute brilliant man manager. And I bet 90% of them players would say what a great man manager he is. And that was the difference, I think.
Steve, I think that's a fantastic point. He just gets it, doesn't he? He just knows what it takes to be successful here. So I'm just going to flick something else up on the screen. And then what we're going to do is we're going to talk a bit about, if we do want to get into the top six next season, what do we need to do to address it? And then the sort of players, and we can talk a bit about some of the players that are going to be leaving us, some of the players we hope to potentially re-sign, and some of the players and positions we think we need to fill. But let's just let me just bring this up on screen. So what this is, and I deliberately haven't shared this with the chaps prior because I want their kind of gut reaction, but this is essentially a sort of a key stats comparison. So what I've done is I've basically said, how did we fare for last season? Where would that leave us in the league table in terms of position based on that specific indicator or stat? What you would need to achieve to get in the top six and ultimately the improvement needed. And then we can go through some of these and be like, right, okay, well, actually, for example, the first one, goals scored. we need to score 56% more goals than we did last season to get into the playoffs. I mean, no shit, Sherlock. We all know that. But, this is just kind of highlighting some of those things. So we've got goals scored. So we scored 45 goals in the league last season. We actually finished 22nd in the league in terms of goals scored. So quite clearly, we have a bit of a problem in that department. Probably, as I say, no surprise to anyone. Goals conceded, we actually finished 6th. In the so from a goals conceded, we do okay, and actually we're almost there or thereabouts. And there is a theme throughout these stats that basically anything going forwards, we're not very good, and anything defensively, we're pretty good. There's a theme here. Amount of shots. So we were 22nd in the league for the amount of shots taken. So again. But actually, what's interesting is a reason there's an asterisk against this. West Brom only got 8% more shots than us and finished in the top 6, but they're an anomaly. All of the other top 6 were way and above that number. So West Brom obviously had a very high shot accuracy. Progressive passes. So this is anything that essentially moves you up the field. 22nd again for that, some way off. We also were the team that we were 3rd in terms of the length of pass. So again, that highlights that we are still quite a direct team. We're one of the most direct teams in the league, which, look, a lot is said for that, but I personally don't mind as long as it's effective. In terms of passes completed, again, 22nd in the league. Progressive carries. This one is one that I would love for us to talk a bit more about, because it's essentially people that dribble and beat players. And we don't really have many players that do that. So that we were 22nd for that. But then again, you go to defensive actions, shots on target against. We were 5th. We don't allow many shots against us. Tackles in interceptions. We were 2nd for the most amount of tackles in interceptions, which again just shows you how defensively sound we are. And then possession, 22nd again in the league for possession at 42%. So I think I'd summarize all of that by saying what this highlights to me is our defensive structure, particularly towards the back end of the season, was pretty sound. But going forwards, we've got to make some improvements, haven't we, gents? And looking at this and also just your own views, what do you think we need to add to our sort of playing style and squad over the course of the summer? And we'll start with yourself, Angelo.
The very, very interesting thing here is that 2 of the teams that will be playing in the Premiership next season, in Ipswich and Southampton, conceded more goals than Millwall, which is quite an interesting stat, yeah? So on the defensive side, we're there or thereabouts, yeah? The absolute disgraceful stats, mate, are we only had 2 players who scored more than 5 goals. Kevin Nisbet got 5 goals, is our 2nd top scorer, and our top scorer was Zian Fleming with 7 goals. Doesn't take a rocket scientist to solve this issue. We need to get some goal scorers. Tom Bradshaw, 4 goals. Watmore, 3 goals. Longman, 3 goals. Cooper, who normally gets, he didn't score to the last 3 or 4 games, did he? Which, so it's quite scary that our top scorer got 7 goals, and then we got 1, we got 5. It's the summer, in my opinion, is just, we've got to find some goal scorers. They've got to be out there, and it's the number 1 priority. I've seen it about on social media and some other podcasts where, how many new strikers do we need? Yeah, I actually think we need 3, mate. I actually think we need 3 new strikers. Is Watmore a striker? I read an article that Imaku doesn't like playing up front. So, he doesn't want to play up front. We got Bradshaw, injury prone. Nisbet, injury prone. Who have we got that's going to put the ball in the back of the net? Is Zian Fleming going to be with us next season? Which Zian Fleming are we going to find? So it's like I said, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to work this out. Defense is strong. We proved it with all the stats, your stats as well, Chris. We just need to go and find some firepower, mate. It's as simple as that. If we can find some firepower with this manager, who will get all of our players motivated, yeah, we might have a chance, mate. We might have a chance next season. Yeah.
I concur. I really do. I mean, the thing is for me, it's like Harris has always played usually with two up top, right? Like a big man and a little man, if you like. Obviously, the classic examples are Gregory and Morrow, which God, I'd kill for them too. Back now, I think Gregory incidentally is just signed for Mansfield, so we shall see.
Chris, sorry, just one last thing before you carry on. And also, mate, no goals from midfield, like the odd goal here and there from Saville. Yeah, you know, we used to have Alex Ray banging in like double figures, Tim Cahill double figures. We got no goals in midfield either, which is a big problem as well. Sorry, mate, I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
No, mate, 100%, and that's kind of where I was going to. And Dan, I'll bring you in here, mate. But like, you know, does the Harris style? Do you think that Harris would want to play a two up front, or is he looking for someone to kind of do what we saw in glimpses from Obafemi in terms of someone who's willing to run that line and run the channels, but then more goals would come from deeper? You know, what do you think that we need to go after, Dan?
Potentially. I mean, the biggest change I think next season will be, well, you can say biggest change. We played with sort of, I suppose, wingers, wide forwards in the final weeks of the season. I think that'll be the case next year. I don't think wing backs will. I can't see that being a thing next year, because obviously you make a good point about goals from midfield, but in the setup 3-5 at the back, whatever you want to coin it, you place that greater emphasis on your wing backs to kind of get involved in the assists and goals and sort of things. And at times the midfielders were sitting so deep, they're never really gonna chip in with those goals regularly. I think next year, in terms of like carries, dribbling, I think that stat will be reasonably high, because I think it goes back to Harris working with what he had. I quite like Ryan Longman. I saw a bit of him when he was out on his first loan spell at Wimbledon. He was very raw, but I liked him. Direct, bit of a throwback. I thought he was probably, when you look back at the last kind of 3-4 games, he was a very, very big part of us picking up points, us picking up the results we needed. And I think that will be an area we will look to focus on the transfer window, whether that's we play 2 wide players and 2 men up front, or whether it's sort of a 4-2-3-1 and you've got someone in that hole, sort of like Fleming is at the minute. My gut tells me he probably won't be around next year. There's a bit of talk already. I know Rich Cooley's already kind of touched on it, and I think once obviously the club hold the power, because it's still a year option on his contract, but once an agency decides they want to move a player on, it can get a bit difficult. And I think, in fairness to Zian, like, we come really, really close first year in the playoffs, and I don't think he's made any secret that he wants to get to the top. And I think it was always likely to be a case of, can we get to the top in year 1, year 2 at Millwall, or then potentially it would be a case of, right, Millwall have benefited and Zian has benefited, and a part in other ways. And I think when you look as well at how the squad's been built, and there does need a bit of work doing, Hutchinson's sort of gone. We need, to bring in, I thought we needed someone at centre back before Tanganga arrived in January. So you've got work that needs to be done there. You've got wide players. I think in terms of the strikers, need a different option really. Bradshaw and Nisbet, relatively similar, although Nisbet has, maybe not adapted to the demands of what's expected from a Millwall forward leading the line. Sort of Harris touched on that as well with Obafemi, didn't he? Kind of saying, I think it was, this is what you need to do as a Millwall number 9 or something to that effect. But that's what I think. I think in terms of possession, 42% overall is higher than I was expecting, to be honest. And it's probably been skewed a little bit by the kind of games Edwards had at the helm. I know a few of them were quite high. I think we've touched on it already, but we've played some decent football. We played some effective football, and we've won games with 35-40%. I think it's just, it's just common sense. The more you have of the ball, the more likely you are to win a game of football, and the more you have of the ball, the less likely you are to tire yourself out chasing the football. But it's not the be-all and end-all for me, and I think we do have some good options in midfield. I think, goals has been a problem since we come back to the Championship. Zian and Tom Bradshaw had a really, really good year last year, but I think Zian's done all right this year considering where we are in the league, and he's been chopped and changed out on the left. And Tom, I think it's the first season. I could be wrong. I think one year he went very close to double figures, but I think last year is the only year he's hit double figures in the Championship. So, we need more options there. And as well, someone touched on it as well. Injuries. We're not blessed with we're quite prone to injuries. And you both made a very good point with Joe Edwards. I think no one will deny that Tanganga and Obafemi were quality additions in January, but the fact they hadn't played football for effectively, maybe a year, by the time they were getting up to speed, he was kind of already out the door. And I think they were both very, very important. Us staying up, but it's sort of almost like a sick irony that he didn't actually get to reap the benefits of them coming in. But that's what I think. I think, I don't think I'll say anything different to anybody else. I think it's quite obvious where we're lacking. I think his forwards, I think his goals. It'd be nice to see a bit of variety, a bit more pace as well as someone who can maybe play with his back to goal. I think it'll be a big summer. And as much as Harris has divided opinion in terms of keeping him longer term, I think he's shown before he's got an eye for a player. He's built the squad he built 4 or 5 years ago is effectively here. And people will say, well, some aren't good enough and stuff. But to defend him, football in the Championship has moved on a hell of a lot in the last 5 years. Like, it's a lot more athletic, pace and power is a lot more. Not to say it wasn't important 5 years ago, but it's moved on a hell of a lot. So I'm quite comfortable that he's going to hopefully have an input on recruitment. I know obviously Steve Gallen, director of football, and the club will sort of lead on targets, which I think is the modern way. I suppose the clubs are trying to move away from one man having all the power, because you're more likely to lose your manager than you are a sporting director of football. So it's encouraging, and hopefully, I think there's a lot of work to be done, but quietly optimistic. I think our recruitment's been relatively all right. I don't think we get everything right, but in terms of the players we've brought in recent years, you look at Zian, I think Casper's a cracking signing, and even Jaffa. I know he played with Joe Edwards before, but if you'd have said a couple of years ago we'd be bringing, I rate Tanganga quite highly, and I think he's got a good pedigree and he played Champions League football. I know he's not been a regular at Spurs for a prolonged period because of injuries, but I'd say him and Obafemi were both coups for the club in January. So 100%. We're moving in the right direction, and hopefully they can sort of carry that on.
Agreed, Dan. I think we'll certainly talk a little bit about who was responsible for making those signings in January, because maybe or maybe not that all of the people responsible are no longer with the club, but we'll certainly talk about that a little bit later. Steve, is there anything you want to add to the talking points in terms of where we think we need? I think so far we're definitely agreeing that we want sort of a lot more forward options, a little bit of variety in the squad, because the squad that Harris has inherited is very much set up to play wing backs, and that's not going to be his playing style, we don't think. So we need to recruit better for that, and we need a little bit more dynamism, a bit more pace, a little bit more power in the side. So where do you think that the priority areas are for us, Steve?
Look, it's Angelo's absolutely right, and Dan and yourselves. Look, it's up front, isn't it? We've got to score more goals. I think you'll be lucky, Angelo, to get 3 strikers in. We've struggled to get 1 over the last few seasons. But you're right. And look, let's be honest, they are out there. And that's the frustration, I think, with Aldo and co in the past, isn't it? Is what are you doing? Because these lads are out there. You've got to take a punt or two with the odd youngster or the odd, one that's not quite hit the mark. But that's the trick, isn't it? That's the whole. That's what they're paid to do, basically. These gems are out there, and Jesus, South London, London in general, it's an absolute hotbed of quality footballers, just desperate to make a career for themselves. And the fact that we've just not been able to pick that talent up is hugely frustrating. But so look, strikers definitely. But I'll put another. Just listening to you guys, then it's just sort of triggered in my mind. You know, you think Amaku, I like the look of him. He's not a striker, probably. He said himself, as you said, Angelo, doesn't want to be a number 9, but he's an attacking player. So you've got him. I think this Adam Mayer is going to turn into a bit of a player if he gets a chance. So, you know, that'll be an attacking threat. SA, without a doubt, if he gets a chance, will be an attacking threat. So it really is like a central striker. Look, Tom will be a good backup. I think Nisbet's, there's a player in there, to be honest, but he's got to stay fit and he's got to learn how to play for us, albeit I think he's probably better in a 2 up front, and I'm not sure if that's the way we're going to go or not. But what I'd like to see is our attacking style of football improve as well. So what I mean by that is, one is pace, and I think I've said there are a couple of players that I think will add that pace if they're given a chance. But also the build-up play and around the box. I watch games, you know, you watch games live, you watch games on telly, and these players make these little darty runs. Look at him yesterday, Armstrong. The movement of Armstrong up front for Southampton, running into space, running behind defenders, giving and then sliding the ball through to him. And you think, Christ, how's he got 10 yards of space? But that's a quality player finding that space and then the quality pass going through to him. So I think our work in and around the box needs to improve. And with that, look, for me, Denor, I think we're all would say has definitely got a quality player in there. But I want to see him more as an attacking threat, more of a, you know, a telling ball that's, you know, going to put somebody through clean on goal. And Billy, you know, again, a player that divides opinion. And he is a bit of a Ray Wilkins sideways and backwards, but he retains possession for us. And that's got to be a good thing in it. As you said, Dan, it goes without saying, the more you've got the ball, the more likely you are to bloody score a goal. But I'd like to see, surely they're going to work with Billy in the close season or the beginning of next season, putting those slide rule passes forward and into dangerous positions for strikers to create chances. So I think if we could work on that. And one last thing, look, we're renowned as being the bloody great set piece experts. I don't know about you, I get bloody bored of the long ball to the far post where Cooper's trying to head it and getting dragged down by various players. I mean, why we don't just use him as a decoy rather than actually, you know, lobbing it up to him. But I'll go back to that game you mentioned at the beginning, Angelo, the first game of the season, Middlesbrough. And I was at that game, and I must admit, come away from that thinking, Jesus, this is a different Millwall team. Really excited that we were going to have a good season. And one of the things we did on that day was, before we scored, we had a couple of corners, which were dangerous. We took a short corner. I don't know if any of you remember. It was a short corner.
I do.
We should have scored. It was a great move. We never bloody did it again. Never did it again. We might have done it once in the season. And again, had a good chance. And you think, why aren't we mixing it up like that? Apparently, that's Barrett's division, isn't it? You know, to do that. But stuff like that is massive in the game. But it doesn't have to be a long, high ball to Cooper. Let's be a bit more creative with our set plays, is what I'd say.
Steve, it's a great point, and I can see it clear as day. We played some really good stuff away at Middlesbrough in that first game. I was there. I was mildly optimistic myself. I definitely enjoyed that. It's funny you talk about the kind of slide rule pass. So, by the way, Casper Denor, even though obviously didn't play as many games as I think he would have liked, he was by far and away our highest progressive passer in the team. Still 2.5 times less than the top one in the league, but he was by far and away, you know, our best player in terms of that. So I'm hoping that next season he can play a little bit more. But the one point I want to close on with this topic is around Sean Hutchinson. So obviously it has been announced that he'll be moving on from the club, which is interesting, by the way, because I had the pleasure of sitting next to him at the end of the season awards, and he was cautiously optimistic that they would sort something out, which obviously they didn't. So my assumption is that either he's been offered better terms, like a longer contract somewhere else or whatever. That's kind of my assumption. But I think he's key for us to replace both on the field and off the field. I know he didn't play as many games in the last season as he would have liked, but with him going out the door, Tanganga not guaranteed to be here next season, we certainly need to sign a centre-back. And I guess my question to you, gents, is what about the leadership qualities as well that he brings? Do we need to sign a captain, or do we think that Jake Cooper is that man? George Savile has said many times publicly he doesn't want the armband because of the things that it comes with off the field. I think it's fair to say on the field, he certainly is someone that steps up to that mark. But, Angelo, I sort of, what's your view on, what we'll need to do to try and replace someone like Sean Hutchinson?
Yeah, first of all, I'm gutted that Hutch is going, mate. Absolutely gutted he's going. The last full appearance that he gave us was that unbelievable, performance up at Bristol City. Honestly, forget that he scored the winner. That game, I was watching it on a stream, that game, and I was thinking, this geezer is unbelievable. He's hardly played any football, and he was so commanding. Everything was getting sorted out. It was one of the best performances I've seen Sean Hutchinson play. So obviously you might know a bit more because you were speaking to him, but the only reason I can think that he might be going is because he wants to play. It's got to be that he wants to play, and he's not guaranteed to play with us because he looked the best player on the pitch and at Bristol City, so he's still got it to play. So I'm gutted he's going, mate. Absolutely gutted. And I know, I've heard it from a lot of people that, he is solid around the changing rooms as well when people look up to him. And so, yeah, gutted he's going. Tanganga, I saw something today that Ipswich are sniffing around him now. I hope that we can get him, but it's gonna be hard work to get Tanganga. And obviously we don't know about Alex Mitchell, mate. I'm hearing great things from the Lincoln fans, don't fall in love with a lone player and all that. They love him. But again, I've heard whispers that he wants guaranteed first team football. Is he going to get that at Millwall? Is he ready for Championship? To be fair to the guy, I've got to give him a lot of credit. He's gone out and done these 3 long loans and he's played a lot of footballs. So should we give him a go, Chris? Possibly give him a go. But yeah, if he don't come back, if we don't get Tanganga, yeah, we've got a big void to fill in there, mate. Because Lenny, Lenny's got to stay as a right back, mate. He's just, he plays so well there. I don't want to move him into centre half. So Wes Harding, like the guy, but is he Championship top standard? I don't think so. I like the guy, but I think there's probably better out there than Wes Harding. So gutted Hutchins going. That's
Sorry, Angela. He seemed to do better in a 3, didn't he, Harding? It was that just it seemed like he played, in a 2, he seemed to struggle, didn't he? And that's the problem, I think. To play a fat back forward. Yeah.
Sort of, I spoke to Wes Harding. I didn't speak to all the players, but Wes Harding's another one I spoke to, and I've got to say, really nice bloke. Really, really nice bloke. He, in a professional way, he wasn't whinging, but he was saying how he was frustrated because, I don't know if you've noticed, but since Harris has come in, he's not even been in the squad. Like, he's just gone completely. So, I asked him, does he think he'll be here next season? And he wasn't sure. Of course, he's contracted. But I think whatever happens with him, clearly a good professional and a good guy to have around the changing room. But Steve, just building on that point, like, I would love to get your point of view on the captain element, because Sean Hutchinson is the leader in that dressing room. You can, being around the players, even little things like one of the players had found a spare set of car keys from one of the other players. And the first thing he did was come up to Sean Hutchinson and went, "Whose car keys are this?" And he went straight away, "Oh, that's so-and-so." It's just, he is the leader of that changing room. And he's going to be difficult to fill. Do you think that we now need to go out and sign a captain, or do you think it's time for Jake Cooper to step up and be that man?
Look, there are natural leaders, aren't there? As Harris is a natural leader, as a man manager, and was on the pitch. There are natural leaders on the pitch. So yes, you can go and buy one, but sometimes that's a bit, isn't it? Bringing a new player in and they're suddenly your club captain can be a bit strange. I think it should be from within if possible. Look, with the greatest respect, I don't see Big Jake as a captain. He just doesn't give you that feeling, does he? And he almost looks awkward with it, if I'm honest. And I think it affects his game. I think it's well known, isn't it, that he played a lot better alongside Hutch, where he had the responsibility of leadership. Leonard, you would think, could be a good option, but he hasn't voiced any sort of view that he wants to do that. Sav, as you say, has sort of said that he wouldn't want to. Maybe we should be looking at, it's a little bit random, but maybe somebody like Billy Mitchell, somebody really bring him out of his shell to, look, you need to start leading on the pitch as a Millwall man. Danny Mack, another good, he's a proper Millwall player, isn't he? I know he's not so good going forward, but a proper defender. So look, first bases, it's got to be somebody who's first choice, got to be on the pitch every week if they're fit. I think we could either develop it from within the club with a couple of names I've mentioned there, but no, I wouldn't be against the right person coming in, being the captain as well. That was a big thing. We lacked leadership, didn't we, last year? And funny enough, that was something you saw more evident when Harris came back. And that was a collective, not just Jake, a bit Jake, but it was collective on the pitch, wasn't it? Players stepped up and were collectively leading on the pitch, So, but yeah, we do need an out-and-out captain. Maybe one of the youngsters, as I've said, could be an option.
Can I just say something?
I would just, sorry, Angelo, just to echo your point, Hutch, what a bloody player. And I think the biggest disappointment is that he didn't get a proper send-off. I'm disappointed he's gone. I think probably as we're looking like a bit more of a ruthless club from that point of view going forward, it's probably not a bad decision to have him round as a club man. We've got Harris, we've got other people in the club. Really, if he's on the playing staff, he needs to be playing. So I'm not too disappointed that we've probably said, look, it's time to move on. I think for the past 5 years, he hasn't trained every day of the week, as he's not been able to. He's been injured for years and years, but he's put out some outstanding performances. And you're right, Angelo, that Bristol game was phenomenal. And his goal was just off the scale. But to not get a proper send-off, that was really disappointing. Obviously, a bit of a mix-up because they were still trying to do a deal. But, really disappointing. And I would imagine he'll come back and they'll do something again, where he will get half-time or before the match, a bit of a thank you to the fans and a thank you from us, because he's been a great stalwart for us.
Yeah, so Chris, just on this Cooper captain situation, I hear it all the time. He ain't captain material. He shouldn't be a captain. Blah blah blah. Couple of things I've heard though. If you listen to the Wall Talk with Ryan Leonard, he actually says in that interview, you can't get Cooper out of the gym. Yeah, we're all messing about. Where's Cooper? He's in the gym. Right. Apparently, he looks after his body like no tomorrow. He makes sure that he eats the right things. He drinks the right things. He really looks after himself. And secondly, mate, he's never, ever injured. Yeah. So I think he might be a different type of captain where you look at him and you think, my God, this guy is a model pro, how he looks after himself, in the training ground. Obviously, we don't see that, do we? All we see is the Cooper on the pitch. But it sounds like he's a figure in the changing room where you think, wow, this guy really, really knows how to be professional. And I think that's why he's captain, mate. I think.
Good point.
Definitely. I mean, that makes sense. Like, there's more than one way to lead, isn't there? And I think from watching him on the pitch, I mean, I think he's spoken before because he had that ridiculous run of consecutive games, didn't he, before he dislocated his shoulder. And I think he kind of went into a little bit how, I can't remember if it was before or after he got injured, how sort of lengths he went through to make sure he was available each week. I don't think the club will, I can't see the club changing it. I think, obviously, what I would say is when Neil come back in, not just Jake, like, I think overall the season, I don't think he had the best season, but I think you saw a lot of, off the top of my head, Jake, one of you guys mentioned Danny Mack as well, and as well the keeper, Matty Sarkic. Just 3 examples, I thought all of them were completely different players under Chopper. Whether he's come in, he's given them that belief, and that could well tie in. I mean, it's no secret that he's a very, very good man manager. Whether his kind of arrival has given them that bit of confidence, and maybe we'll see that come out a bit more. I think there was a bit of certainly felt watching that there was a bit of a dearth of leadership at times during the season. And I think the only thing I'd say is I don't know if it's 100%. It's not the be-all and end-all who is wearing the armband, as long as the leader's on the pitch, and hopefully, like we've, I think Steve said about George Saville, constantly, in the referee's ear, and he does the right things, and you've got other players who will hopefully grow under Harris as well. It'd be good to bring in a few characters in the summer. I think in terms of Hutchinson, I'll go on to more specifically in a second. I think in terms of leadership, we'll miss him, but obviously Neil coming back not offsets that, but we're losing potentially a big Millwall character, but we've really gained a big Millwall character back, albeit not as a player. So hopefully that will have an impact. In terms of on the pitch, I think he's been class, hasn't he? Like, I think in the chat, especially in the Championship, he's really, really underrated. Been very, very unfortunate with injuries, especially the last kind of season and the year gone by as well. We always look a better team when Hutch has been playing. Not too sure of the reasons why he's going. I'm not too sure, but I think he'll be a big miss on the pitch. Obviously, Cooper and Tanganga struck a good little partnership towards the end of the season, so he couldn't get back in. But I think on the whole, over his time here, he's been a top player, probably underrated. And yeah, I think we'll miss him on and off the pitch, but hopefully he gets sorted with a good move.
I hope so, Dan. Like, I'm gutted as you all are that he's going. And to Steve's point, I really do hope the club recognise him some way. I don't think it was a deliberate oversight. I really don't. I think it was just one of those things where we thought something would get sorted and it wasn't, But I hope he gets sorted. And I think one of the other points I would make in terms of Cooper, not that I like plugging other podcasts, but Gary Rowett has a podcast called Breaking Lines. And on it, there was some fans' questions that he was answering. And one of the questions he got asked was, who are the best players you've managed? And whilst he shied away from answering that question, he talked about the most professional players he'd managed. And one of them that he called out was Jake Cooper. So I think, again, to your point in terms of what happens behind the scenes and that kind of leadership and the different ways of leading, there's definitely that element for Jake Cooper that we don't see. So I think that's another key point. Interesting, he also called out Zian Fleming and Vogelsammer as well, by the way, which I thought was very interesting. Good old Vogie. Right, we're going to segue then to the third and final point that we want to cover today. So I'm just going to flick on screen now. This is what the Championship looks like next season. So obviously, after our dear friends Leeds losing in the playoffs to Southampton yesterday, I've got to be honest, I can't stand Russell Martin. So I wasn't happy either way. But anyway,
I think that's unanimous, Chris.
This is the 24 sides that will be as part of the Championship next season. Some really good games there. To be fair, it's a really good league, and again, a lot will be need to be done in the summer in order for us just to stand still. I think, particularly the players that are going on loan. So it's going to be a big summer, and I think what's clear is whether you agree with the decision or not. I've got my own personal views on it, but Mr. Jimmy Berylson, JB Jr., certainly wasted no time in making changes at the very top of the hierarchy. However, it happened. You had Steve Kavanagh, Billy Taylor, and Alex Aldridge all leave the club and replaced by two chaps. So we've already talked about Steve Gallen, who joins us essentially as Director of Football. And then Mark Fairbrother, who returned to the club. He was previously, I think, head of finance. He's returned as essentially, I think the title was like managing director of all non-football operations or something along those lines. So, look, I think everyone. This is a sensitive topic because everyone have their opinions. I don't like to have opinions on things I don't know facts about. So there's a lot of people that say Alex Aldridge is shit, get him out of the club. I don't know if he was good or not, so I'm not going to sit here and say otherwise. The only person that I can honestly say that I had dealings with is Billy Taylor, and he was an absolute pleasure to work with. He did a lot for me personally and the family, and I wish him certainly all the best in terms of his future endeavours. But there's a lot of things we can talk about in terms of off the field. We'll start with this. There's other things around the lease that was granted recently. You've got the article that came out in the week around the attendances, it being an all-time high and where all these different people are coming from. You've got the training ground. So we could spend all day definitely on this chaps. But Dan, let's start with you. In terms of the kind of off-the-field changes that have recently happened with those three exiting and the two new chaps coming on board. What's your take on that? What do you make of all of that, mate?
I think after the year we've just had, we probably could have done with a bit of stability. Obviously, you've touched on it there. We've got a lot going for us at the minute in terms of positive things off the field. The lease attendance has been, really, really highest for I think since the 50s, something along those lines. So yeah, a challenging year. It's a difficult one. I mean, looking at it, I spoke with. I went down to chat with Steve Kavanagh shortly after John passed away to sort of run a feature ahead of a Bristol City game, and he touched a little bit on the work he was doing with Jimmy to sort of get him up to speed, and I get the impression both of them were putting in a hell of a lot of work, because there's a hell of a lot of work that goes into running a football club. Obviously, it's his show now. I just worry perhaps that we've lost three experienced people in senior roles at the same time. People have their own opinions, and that's absolutely fine. I think Steve Kavanagh, for what it's worth, he's an experienced operator at this level. He's on the believe the FA board, things like that. So, and we've come a long way off the pitch while he's been in. Billy Taylor, again, I've had personal dealings with, and I think he's a diamond. I think he's done a lot for the club, a lot for fans. His name will resonate with a lot of people, and it's a nice story as well. He's worked his way up from, I think he was program editor initially. I could be wrong.
And Dan, can I just say something there? I really want to say something on that point, mate. I've seen a lot on socials and things like that of Billy and of Alex Aldridge, and people sort of saying they're not equipped to do the job they've got, blah, blah, blah. But we should like that. We should like the fact that these lads have earned the right and built their way up and have climbed through the ranks, just like we see some of the lads on the field. But we always seem to sort of criticise some of our own, don't we? And I don't know why that is, but I think if it's a shame, because I honestly think that, I guess the point I'm trying to make here is that we do like to criticise our own, and I don't quite understand that sometimes. And I think, yes, maybe there's a natural cycle where certain players or certain people need to move on, but sometimes having someone that grows within the club is a good thing, because we are a unique club, and you have to have someone that gets the club as well as just being good at what they do. And I can say firsthand that Billy certainly brought that. So sorry, Dan, back to you, but I just wanted to say that.
That's right, mate. Yeah. Club means a hell of a lot to Billy. I don't think that's any secret. And I think you're right. I mean, everyone changes and grows. Like, I don't know what you guys were doing 5 years. Like, I wasn't a journalist 5 years ago. I worked in customer service. Like, I understand it's different when you're in an important position at a football club. But even in terms of Alex Aldridge, like, do I agree with every aspect of our recruitment? No. Like I said, I think we probably went into the season. Like I said, I think probably we needed a centre half about 6 months before Tanganga come in. But when you look at the calibre of the players we've signed, in terms of, January was a good window. It was a gamble, and I think it ended up biting Joe Edwards, in the arse a little bit. But, the calibre of the players we brought in, you can't really argue with it. They're two good championship players. People will have their own opinions, but I just think the order of the day for me, after the year we've just had, was a bit of stability. We're not going to get that. Only time will tell. Could take us to the next level. I hope it does. That'd be my only thing. Kind of having a clean sweep of 3 senior positions in one go. Maybe not the sort of stability I think we could probably do with for a year. We could do the quiet year, couldn't we, lads?
Absolutely.
Anjo, what's your view, mate?
Yeah, again, I've never had any dealings with them 3 at all. Looking in from the outside, I try not to listen to all the negative stuff, but, ex-West Ham and all this about Kavanagh and whatever. Oh, by the way, did you see Kavanagh at the FA Cup final? He was 6 seats along from Prince William. You see him, yeah?
In the playoff,
yeah.
Good
connection. Yes, pretty much like what Dan said there. I think the recruitment hasn't been bad at all. Like to get Tanganga, to get Obafemi, Casper Denoy is a good signing. Zian Fleming, even when we got I remember when we got Ryan Woods, I was so excited because I can remember him coming down with Brentford, tore us a new arsehole. He was outstanding. Oliver Burke as well. I remember Oliver Burke coming to the Den as a youngster with Nottingham Forest. And I thought, wow, this is a prospect, So we have gone out there and pulled some good names in. Listen, all I'm hoping is that Jimmy knows what he's doing, and the guys that he's got in, and I'm sure probably more people are going to join because to help with the development especially on the recruitment side. I just hope that I do get this feeling that Jimmy is like. It's like almost like he wants to fucking go for it now, He wants to. It's been quite ruthless, But yeah, like Dan said, stability is good, but time will tell. And again, I put my faith in Jimmy, and I hope he's doing the right thing. And we'll have to watch this space and see what happens in the summer, mate. But I've heard good things about this Gallen, that he did bring some good players for Charlton. Let's watch this space, Chris. That's all I can say really on that topic. With regards to the attendances, fantastic, mate. I don't mind the tourists, yeah. All right, you get the odd one with his ticket, you're sitting in my seat and all that rubbish, but we can deal with that, can't we, But yeah, they're bringing money into the club. That's the most important thing. It's a shame that our ground is not a little bit bigger, because I think we would have got 25, even up to the 30Ks in the last few games, But that architect picture of what the stadium could look like in a few years looks really nice. 34,000 capacity. I hope it happens before I pop my clogs, because it looks really nice, So, but yeah, I'm putting my faith in Jimmy, mate, and let's hope that that the new recruits. But yeah, I saw that thing that Billy put out, Billy Taylor. He seemed genuinely gutted that he was leaving the club, so you could tell that he had the blue blood, as well. So yeah, watch his space, I think, Chris, and fingers crossed.
Yeah, agree with you. I think, look, end of the day, Jimmy owning the club, he earns the right to make these decisions, right? Just like I know there's a lot of talk around if Fleming does go, which personally, based on no knowledge, I think he will go this summer. And if we sell him for 5 million, which I think is the rumoured asking price, we can all sit here and say, oh, he's worth more than that. But if Jimmy's happy with that, then that's his call. And I think we just have to respect that. He's earned the right to make these decisions, and we have to put our trust in him, just like we did with his dad. And whilst there might be certain things we might not agree with, it's his call. But Steve, I think, what's your view as well on? Do you think this is an indication that he's going for it? He's like clean slate, bringing in these new people at the top. We've got the lease now in place. Obviously, the training ground stuff going on in the background. The attendance is at all-time high. Do you think he's going to go for it this summer?
Yeah, I'll be honest, and I don't know whether it was a reflection of our performances, but in the sort of middle of last year, I'm starting to think I'm not sure he's really into it like his dad was, and you think, is he really going to take us to another level? Well, I've changed my mind now. I think he's really up for it. I think, like Angelo's just said there, it seems like he wants to go for it, and he wants to prove probably to us, to himself, and probably do it for his dad's legacy. I'm going to finish the job my dad started here. Look, it might be bullshit, but it feels, let's be honest, as a high-level manager, chairman, these top high-profile jobs, the worst thing you can do is do nothing. You need to make decisions. They'll not always be right. You need to have the balls to make decisions, quality decisions. One of those was bringing Harris in, no doubt, or part of that. I agree with Dan. You'd probably say, do we need a lot of upheaval at the moment? Kavanagh, love him or hate him, he seems quite in with the FA, and that's probably a decent thing for us in our situation. But people sort of, he was a bit Marmite, wasn't he? And Aldo, again, I agree with the guys that I thought I'd be a bit controversial today, saying I don't think his recruitment's been as bad as some people seem to say it is. We've had some great signings over the last few years. And look, please, everybody out there, including us, every player we're rumoured to be interested in isn't fact. Everybody's on, aren't they? As soon as we're rumoured to be in for someone, it's like, oh, he's shit, he's this, he's that. It's paper talk, until the key people tell us it's genuine. I talked about Kiefer Moore earlier. I think that was genuine at the beginning of the season. I'm not sure other times it has been. So Aldo's probably not, look, he's not the best, he's not the worst. The other thing, people get really frustrated with our recruitment, don't they? But Tanganga could be a case in part. We might get outbid on money. We've got to have a realistic that we can't match some of the wages that other teams are going to offer. And if a guy, I mentioned Ben Marshall earlier on, he admitted he went to Norwich for the money. He said the money they offered me was
we all would.
Exactly. We can't say otherwise. And you know what? Within a week of being there, he said, I regretted it. Because I met this Varka who's a nutter, and I thought, shit, what have I done? But I'm very happy with, a multi-million-pound contract, So, you've got to get that in our head. But I think, look, it does feel like there's something happening. It does feel like, look, I've heard people saying, I think he's going to throw a bit of money at it this summer. I don't want to get carried away. But the Tanganga thing is an indication of that, isn't it? And we must have a reasonable belief that we can get the package that he wants. We're not going to pay him 35, 40 grand that he's probably on now, but we might be able to get to 20, maybe 25 with bonuses and all sorts of other stuff. And look, it's his decision, but you sort of think, what's he, 3-4 years now, hardly kicked a ball, from a great, bursting on the scene. He's come here. Everybody loves him. He's playing regular football. He knows he'll be first choice. Sometimes you think the money's important, but it's bloody good money. It's a good contract. You're at home. So I think we might have a chance of getting him, but I think more importantly, it's an indication of the club wanting to invest this, understanding we have to invest, but sensibly. And I would throw in there as well, sorry, probably going off tap, but we do need to have a go with some of these youngsters. You know, I know you can't just throw lambs to the slaughter, but I do think we're far too cautious with our youngsters. Look, names in part, Alex Mitchell, we've mentioned him. In a way, what more has he got to do to get a chance with us? Now, he can't get guaranteed first-team football, but he should surely be in the squad, most definitely, with what he's gone and done. Dare I say, Alafi. You know, you go back to him we were desperate for a striker. He did have some game time and he wasn't brilliant, but he wasn't, you know, he didn't really get enough time to demonstrate what he could do. And surprise, surprise, I know it's another level, but he's banging in the goals now. And let's be honest, a goal scorer is a goal scorer. Doesn't matter what level it is. Somebody who knows where the back of the net is and can put it away is gold dust. So I think we need to be a bit, not throw them all in, but Essay, for instance, he needs to be given a go this year. Give him if Zian's, I think like you say, Zian, I think will go. There was rumours that it's almost been agreed, hasn't it, that if he didn't get up with us, we'd let him go. I was in the don't let him go camp last year at the beginning of the season. 15, if they'd have gone to 15 million, I thought, well, we can't turn that down. 12 million, you think we could have got 12 million for him, apparently. That's a lot of money. I think 5+ like you now, Chris, I think we need to take it. Let him go on his way. And he has done well for us, but he was a shadow of the player this year, and reinvest that money. And so sorry, I'm going around the houses, but I think he's got a plan, James. I think he's really got a plan and a desire to do something. And it's exciting, isn't it? It's exciting times, you know, and fingers crossed. I look at the league that you put up before, and I think this season just gone, you looked at that league and knew Leicester, Southampton, Norwich, all the rest of them leagues. But Jesus, I said, didn't I, at the beginning, it's going to be a really tough league. I'm looking at this year. It'll be tough, but I think there's more chance. There's a lot of teams throwing a lot of money at it and it's not quite working, or in a bit of turmoil, bit of change, managers coming and going. This could be an opportunity for us. I'll get carried away. But I think we will certainly compete, and that's where I want to be. That we're competing and beat Leeds home and away.
That will be a nice one. Steve, you're right. I think it's we get our recruitment right, and dare I say it, my assumption is Fleming will go. And if Fleming goes, I think we'll spend the most amount of money in a transfer window we ever have. I'll say that. I really think we will, based on, you know, receiving 5 million for Fleming and you know, this assumption that Jimmy's going to go for it. So I think it is exciting. You know, I wish.
Throw a bomb in there. Sorry, Chris. Sorry. Throw a bomb in there. Something that hasn't been mentioned, and I'll ask the three of you. Do you think we'll keep Denor? Do you think there'll be offers for him?
My view is that we should keep him. And I would like to see him play more games. I know why he didn't. I get that. And I'm sure he was very frustrated that he wasn't playing. But I'd like to think, you know, him scoring the last game of the season, sort of probably that little perfect tonic to keep him, you know, sort of interested and see how we can use him next season. I also think he hasn't shown, as good as he's been, I don't think he's shown enough to warrant the £2 million plus price tag. And I don't think we would get an offer for that. So that's my view. I don't know if anyone's got any different views to that, but at the moment, I assume he's here next year.
Yeah, I don't think.
I think there was a batch of about 3-4 games where he was really, really good. Then he got injured. Then when he come back, he wasn't as good. Then he got dropped. and then he was a bit part player. But there was about a 3-4 game run where I think, wow, we got some player on our hands here, you know. So we need to see that, Dinor. So maybe a good pre-season and lots of games, and we might see a better Dinor. Yeah,
good.
I think he'll be a big part of the plans next year. I don't think as well, like from a club's perspective, we spoke about it before, and I think Harris has already come out and said like he's pinpointed those forward areas, and I think probably notoriously signing goal scorers and signing forwards is probably the hardest thing to do, going and finding a 20-goal striker. And I think as well, when you kind of factor in as well, you've got to replace Hutch. I think it's a big summer, as we've touched on. I think, you know, midfield for me, I don't know whether you guys will agree, probably isn't a problem area. So I just, anything that anyone could lay down ridiculous money for anyone, but I don't think off the top of my head, I can't see it. Famous last words, eh?
We shall see. I think what's for certain, you know, it's going to be an exciting summer. I think it's a huge summer for us. We say it every year, but I really, really do believe it is the biggest summer that I can remember. And it's going to be exciting. It really is. I think I wish the two new guys that are coming in to run the club, Steve Gallen and Mark Fairbrother, all the best. I think, you know, what I would say is a role like that at Millwall is a thankless task. A club like ours, let's be honest, and that's why Kavanagh, you know, Marmite, but it's a thankless task. And I think what we have we have a manager at the top of the club that gets it, will live and die for the shirt, and we have, you know, hopefully an indication from the top of the club that we are going for it, short term and longer term. So I think it is exciting times to be a Millwall fan. I think we've identified throughout the course of the show what we all think we need. For those of you listening, please do put in the comments if you agree, disagree, what sort of players you'd like us to see. And I think we're gonna close it out now, gents. I personally have really enjoyed this. I think it was a first for me hosting this. I think it's a first for some of you to come on a show like this. So I personally really enjoyed it. Hope the listeners have as well. And most importantly, I hope you three have as well. So a massive thank you for coming on. And I'll just sort of finish by just going around one last time and just saying if you've got any sort of closing statements. So Angelo, first over to you. Anything you want to say before we finish up, mate?
I just want to say thoroughly enjoyed this discussion, and thanks again for inviting me on, Chris. I really have enjoyed it. Yeah, I'm excited for next season. And I strongly believe we have got a very, very good manager looking after us. And it inspires me and gives me hope for next season, mate. So come on, you Lions.
Love it. Love the optimism. Dan, anything from yourself, mate?
Yeah, no, really enjoyed it, lads. Very, very good. Thanks for having us, Chris. And yeah, hopefully you can do some more in the future. It's been good. Good to chat about it now it's over. Good to chat about it without thinking, God, that's going to come back and bite me next week, isn't it? So, yeah, it's been good.
Well, we deliberately waited until it was all over before talking about it. And just to finish off on yourself, Steve, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, thanks, Chris, and the guys. Look, really enjoyed it. Thanks for the opportunity. Look, to all the viewers out there, all the Millwall fans, look, I live up here in Bolton, as I've said, and they are devastated at the moment at not getting into the Championship. And I'm a bit gutted because that would have been well handy for me. No good for you guys travelling. But look, we need to realise how lucky we are. Not lucky, but, you know, it's a bloody good league we're in, the Championship. And that's why it's so important that we stayed up, and thank God we did. And I think, like the guys have said, without getting carried away, optimistic we could have a good summer and you know, do well next year. So I'm looking forward to that. And hopefully, little private joke, hopefully we will see a new hairstyle at the end of next season. So you'll know what I mean there, Chris, and that'll mean we'll have had a good season.
I don't know what you're talking about, mate.
What goes on tour stays on tour.
Yeah, exactly, mate. Exactly. Right. Fantastic. Thank you so much. And for those of you listening, thank you very much as well. You're the reason we do this. Please do like, subscribe, follow, share, all of that kind of good stuff. Comment, and if you did enjoy these, we'll certainly do more of them in the future. And if you're interested in jumping on, then of course please do give me a message on Twitter at Chat with Chaps. So a final thank you from me, and look, enjoy the rest of your bank holiday weekend. Thanks for listening.
Cheers, guys.
Bye for now.
Come on, you Lions.
See you later.